Hello everyone. So today I wanted to make this video to recap the predictions that I had made for the year 2023-2024. Okay, so as an astrologer, I have the habit of, first making the predictions and then revisiting them to, understand the techniques and see any things that I've missed and also to test the ayanamsa and such. I think it's a good practice because that's how we learn, right? I mean, the way to improve research and to understand the rashis is to look at the global events and the world events and then see if those are aligning with your predictions. Okay, so I recommend that to all practicing astrologers as well as students who take my courses. So today I just wanted to visit the 2023-2024 predictions that I had made. Okay, so this is already on my website and also on the YouTube videos. So on Feb 16th, 2023, I had written this article and then I had made a bunch of videos to go through the most important transits. And that was the Saturn's transit in tropical Pisces, right? Jupiter's transit in tropical Taurus, and then Rahu Ketu transit in Aries and Libra axis respectively. Okay, so there are individual videos, and I had also made another separate post and a video for the 12 signs. Okay, so in this today's video I want to revisit the global events that I predicted, because I got many of those events bang on target and it was also very accurate to the date. So I just want to revisit that and reiterate the points related to the ayanamsa and the rashis, because most of these will make sense with using the tropical rashis. So I encourage practicing astrologers as well as the students to look into the tropical rashis, because that will help you with your predictions. Okay, so I'll jump into the post itself. Okay, so this is what I had written for particularly Saturn in Pisces, Jupiter in Taurus, and then Rahu and Ketu in Aries Libra axis. Okay, you can read that post or you can also listen to the videos and you'll see what predictions are here. Okay, so the accurate results mostly I will go through in sections here. Okay, so I've grouped them into sections such as natural disasters, accidents and disasters. Okay, and then political and social events, death and murders, scientific and environmental discoveries. Okay, legal and financial events. Okay, so there was also some social impact because of the transits that we'll also discuss. Okay, so starting with the natural disasters. Okay, while I was making the post or the predictions, that around that time already there was an earthquake in Turkey and Syria. That was very devastating. Okay, and Saturn had not even moved into the sign of Pisces at that time, and Jupiter was also in the sign of Aries at that time. Okay, so earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, all these are very common occurring events naturally. Okay, so there are almost always an earthquake happening several times in a month in any part of the world. So to actually nail that, we'll have to take the impact on what scale it had triggered. Okay, was there a certain Richter scale that was triggered which can classify as a very strong earthquake, or was there a tsunami warning, those kind of things. Okay, so already we know that when we started, Turkey and Syria's earthquake was very big. Okay, so then the edge of the sign Aquarius to Pisces transit of Saturn was starting. Okay, so based on that I had made the predictions that there will be very unnatural cases where the flooding and water related events will be very high. Okay, so you can see that in my writing here. Okay, so I predicted there will be also some controversial news coming from shipment yards, marine for any shipping companies around the world. Okay, and particularly interesting thing was Pisces also shows ashrams, temples, monasteries, these kind of places. Okay, so there were also some very controversial events that happened in the year 2023, 2024 when it comes to these kind of places. Okay, so as predicted, of course, the Ayodhya Ram Mandir was inaugurated in India. That was a very big event. That was very important from India's elections point of view, and also from the point of view of the religious communities and such. So that was a big one. Okay, and then the several events with respect to Saturn and Mars, basically with connection to volcanic eruptions and fire related accidents, those had also mentioned here. Okay, so if you see what had actually happened, right, at the very start, even before Saturn went into Pisces, there was already an onset of all these things that we could have. There was a foreshadowing, you can say. Okay, so an interesting thing I mentioned was there could be oil spills in the oceans, leading to threats to marine life and flora and fauna. Okay, so those were also there, and I was predicting some new discoveries to happen around that time. Okay, when this another 1 year of Saturn's transit in Pisces is still there, so I'm still anticipating some things will show up. But we also have a few interesting discoveries already there. Okay, all right. Then there were some predictions with connections to death of important religious personalities, leaders, politicians, retirement of those kind of people, or even there was a chance that they could be jailed or going to jail. Okay, so those predictions were there, right? So you see that, and in case what has happened is there is a very spiritual place in India called Kedarnath in Himachal region. There was a very severe flooding that happened around July 9th, okay, 2023. So that was causing several deaths, and it is a religious place. That's something we have to keep in mind, connected to Pisces, and there was also the connection to water. So those very clear predictions there. Then there was also the severe rains impacting Amarnath Yatra in India, and again this is a pilgrimage place, and also water related events. Okay, so around July, another interesting things happened around earthquakes. Alaska earthquake on July 16th, and this actually triggered a tsunami warning, but later it was called off. So it was quite a big important quake, you can say, in that region. Then there was another earthquake in Morocco, September 8, 2023, around that. So not a big one as in Alaska or Turkey, but certainly impactful. Okay. Then the unusual rains that was going on was huge. Actually, in New York, there was usually a lot of rains and property damage. Then there was Maui wildfire disaster that happened, and that caused a lot of life and such. Okay. Interestingly, the next few events are very important from an accuracy point of view, because there was a large scale flooding for approximately 12 days in several countries, actually. So 10 countries that experienced this. Talk about the global warming and climate disaster and all those things, but still to see this large scale impact is unusual. Okay, and that took almost 11,000 people's lives. That's, again, it's a water related event. Okay, so that we are seeing throughout the world in the month of September 2023. Then that's a very interesting one. This I really highlighted here, and whatever is highlighted in green is what I actually predicted accurately. Okay, so the other ones are very supportive, but the accuracy is in this. So I'd mentioned the unusual places where there is going to be rains and floods, unseasonal, those kind of things. So Dubai is one such place. Okay, around December 2023, caused a lot of flooding, and they were not even prepared for that kind of rain. So it's very unusual that this happened. Then there was a tsunami warning in this early part of the year, and this is very important. This is Taiwan, and it was in another island country. And I had mentioned here in an additional post I put on 19th of February 2023 that the island nations are the ones that normally are impacted close to this. Okay, even scientifically speaking, the chances of these impacting these island nations are very high. So you'll see a lot of quakes around, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Philippines, Japan, and those kind of places. So Taiwan is one such place. Okay, there was an 7.4 magnitude quake, but they were very well prepared for that. Not many lives were lost, but there was damage. And Taiwan is in the epicenter of the world events now. Okay, so it's very important whatever happens there, given that the entire electronics and semiconductor industry depends on Taiwan. And if there is something that goes wrong in Taiwan, whether it's a warlike situation or any natural disaster, it's going to really impact several nations around the world. The supply chain is going to be completely disrupted. Then you'll see a strong impact on any given day-to-day components and life, including your vehicles, and manufacturing of electronics and semiconductors happens there. So it's a very important country in today's landscape politically. Okay. So then there was the Indonesia earthquake. Earthquakes very common in Indonesia, but this was very high magnitude. And then there's the volcanic eruption. Okay. So this, I think, coincided with the eclipses. So that was very important. Okay. So that was a very accurate event, you can say, with the eclipses there. Because I had mentioned, the date to the exact date here, 11th of April 2024. There was an exact conjunction of Saturn and Mars, and this led to the the volcanic eruption. This is very common. Okay, so I normally find that these two grahas are extremely important when it comes to any earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and such. And the other grahas also need to be involved, but these two are the main triggers. So that was a bang-on prediction around that time, which I got it exact to the date. And then there was also the 10th July to 27th August window, where I had predicted, a lot of these quakes, natural disasters around water bodies, tremors, and those things to happen. So you can see that it's exactly those dates, August and September-ish, July, all those months. Okay, so that was the natural disasters part. Okay, so that's mostly connected to Saturn, Mars, and heavily concentrated on Saturn's Aristas kind of transit here. Okay, then the accidents and disasters that were mostly the big ones around the world. Okay, so this was one in Orissa in India. There was a train accident that was very big actually, which I don't think many of us foresaw this coming. Most likely, if we had paid a little bit of close attention to the transits of Venus, this could have been predicted, but I don't think anyone did that. So this was a very important event for the world overall, because it was a huge train accident, took a lot of lives. Okay, but then the next event that happened, this was the most accurate one I'd predicted. Okay, so June 18th 2023, the Titan submersible imploded during the descent of the, and this was a huge news all over the world, on the headlines, and it was a big disaster. It killed a lot of people, and then was a very insightful article that is there. Okay, this one actually is very important article. I just want to reiterate this because it was an accident that was waiting to happen. Okay, the reason is, any of the Saturn events that happen in the world or to us or anyone, it is not a sudden event. Okay, you don't have to be panicking about that suddenly that it happened. That's typically Mars. Okay, even though this is an accident, this was something that they knew was forthcoming. Like, they never were careful about the management of these, submersibles, and it was just brewing in the background, waiting to happen. Okay, same thing with your volcano eruptions don't happen overnight. It's brewing, it's happening naturally. It's all setting itself up for a very long time before it explodes. Okay, and then you need the other transit of Mars for an accident to happen. This was certainly an accident in this case, but this is something that was in the awareness of those people working in that company. They could have avoided, but they didn't, and it just was a matter of time before it happened. And I was clear in my predictions here. You see, I mentioned very clearly shipment yards and officers, companies related to that, and it was bang on that this happened. Okay, we were close to the eclipses window, and that month was very important. There was many other Rahu and Jupiter transits going on, so it's no surprise that this was in that month. Okay, but Saturn basically announced himself in his transit in Pisces with this event, because it was in huge depth of the ocean that this event happened. Okay, so this transit of Saturn started around end of May 2023, and this happened June 18th. So it was an announcement that this is there. Okay, it's very important. So around that time, there was also another interesting events that happened in religious as well as some extreme events in terms of dogmatic beliefs that just ruined many people's lives. Okay, so one such was actually this Pakistan temple attack. Okay, so there are such events that happen, okay, around the world due to religious conflicts and such. But July 17th 2023, basically there was this Guru Chandal Yoga happening in the sky just before that. Okay, you can see I write about that. So this window of time, 16th May 2023 to 18th of July 2023, there was a 2-month window of time, okay, where Jupiter and Rahu were very close in transit. Okay, so my prediction was, usually that period is very tense, okay, and it triggers all kinds of severe movements in the world when it comes to Jupiterian things in the wrong directions. Okay, so my predictions were there could be scams related to spiritual leaders and religious figures, philosophers, and then there was also predictions related to financial possessions and losses. Okay, I'll get to that in a bit. Then there was the impact of any of these people either going to jail, or there could have been some uprising, I mean in sense of religious figures or some strong right front parties in the world coming to power. Okay, so interesting enough, last time Donald Trump, actually when he was running for elections, he started his campaign around 2016 when Guru and Rahu were conjunct in the tropical sign of Virgo. Okay, and in this window last year, okay, 2023 May to July, there was again the announcement of him trying to run for presidency. Okay, all those issues that he was fighting, and still nothing was clear, nothing was certain, but this transit that certainly brought back some power into the presidential race, you can say. Okay, but that that window, as I mentioned, 16 May to 18 July, was when this Pakistan temple attack happened. Okay, it's an extreme move to attack Hindu temples there because it's a Muslim dominated country, but there was an attack, caused a lot of damage, and religious intolerance, of course. Then there was this mass shooting in the USA. I mean, it's no surprise, it happens every week or every 2 days there, but there is a very significant impact when it comes to the reason for the shooting. Okay, and this was because they targeted black community, and again, it's a religious intolerance or a intolerance when it comes to color, right? So that is around August 26th. 2023. Okay. Another interesting event was this Madurai train accident. There was a fire accident, August 27, 2023. Okay, and you can see I had mentioned there was a Saturn Mars opposition to each other. Okay, so this is a disaster usually for fire and earth related matters. Okay, like quakes and floods or volcanic eruptions. So there was a fire that time, and it was in a train. Of course, you need other grahas to trigger that, but it was still an important event. It killed several passengers, and it was a disaster for the train, management and such, right? Then there was a blast, and coincidentally, all these three, you see, negative events happened back to back 27, 2023, August 26th, August 26th. This was an explosion in Romania, significant damage and fatalities. Not many people died, but it was a significant explosion. Okay, so just a coincidental theme that happened on that day. Okay, you can see that from an astrological point of view. For us, it is no coincidence because it was already in our awareness. It was predicted. Okay, but to the world, if you show this, and they'll think, oh, this is just a coincidence, right? It's a train fire, a mass shooting, and an LPG blast. It wouldn't happen all of a sudden. All are violent events. Okay, all are events that were connected to some form of destruction and fire. Okay, so it's a very common theme here, and it's even a shooting is a fire because you're shooting a firearm, right? So you can see that theme in the same date. Okay, then another one that was a very interesting one in 2024. Still remember, Saturn is in Pisces. Okay, and that is on April 8, 2024. A ferry disaster in Mozambique killed 90 people. Okay, it was a ferry again on water. It was in Saturn in Pisces. Okay. Another interesting one, same time, was a cargo collision in Baltimore, and this was, on bang on the solar eclipse. All right. So there was a solar eclipse which could have triggered any event for the world. But what did it exactly trigger? It was in the water bodies. And why? Because the disaster or the arista causing planet Saturn was in Pisces. Okay. So this is a very key shipping company, and this shipping company was qualified as something that should not have been on the water itself because it was not fit for the water, but still it led to the disaster. Again, a disaster waiting to happen. You can see that. Okay. Another interesting one, July 2nd, 2024. This is not 2023, but 2024. And remember, I mentioned this point here about dogmatic beliefs and, the Guru Chandal yoga. This yoga was not active that time, but Saturn was still in Pisces. Okay. And I had mentioned here that important events with respect to priests, monks, monasteries, temples. Okay. So this was a very sad event, and this happened at a satsang where people gather to, for spiritual practices and to see their, guru or those kind of people. So on July 2nd, 2024, there was a stampede, very unusual, and it happened that 121 lives were lost due to this stampede, and this was at this Bole Baba who claimed to have organized this event, and a fire was lodged. He was like a god man. A lot of controversial events around him. He's a controversial figure, and he's not someone that is known for genuine spirituality. There is always some news which is wrong around him. Okay, so this again, it was a satsang. It's a place where you worship. It's a place where you are praying. Okay, so that's the sign of Pisces. You see the accuracy once again. And death of people. The death is Saturn. Okay, it's happening in the sign where it's a sign of moksha and nirvana. That's Pisces. Okay, so it's no surprise, right? This one was unusual and very strange event for a stampede to take 121 lives. Okay. So next is the political and social events, and this one is a few of them. which was very unusual again for the scale that it took off. One was this Manipur violence in India. Okay, this was May 3rd, 2023. Okay, just before Saturn entered Pisces. In the time frame, again, this was related to unrest or numerous fatalities. It's still continuing. There's a lot of unrest, and again, some clash between ethnicities there. Okay, it's again something that is a dogmatic thing going on, but still people can't live. There is intolerance. Okay, so May 2023 was when this happened, and close to that time frame, right? We are still seeing that 2-month window, 16th May 2023 to 18th July 2023. That Rahu Jupiter conjunction coinciding with Saturn's influence there, right? So that was predicted, religious intolerance and ethnic intolerance. Okay, you can see that. Another very interesting one about France protests around start of January 2023 itself. There was a nationwide protest in France. This was connected to their pension reforms. Okay, and there was a lot of clashes, and it peaked mid-June actually. And that was interesting because nobody anticipated any of these transits to deliver that. But if you pay close attention, it is also there. Okay, again, this was something in the brewing. All right, it was not something that just happened overnight. Okay, there's always a problem with their pension reforms and pension system in France, and people just lost it at that time. And Saturn just had entered, the sign of Pisces. And I mentioned here, that there is something that is very important when it comes to how, we have to deal with work-life balance. Okay, and that was one of the most important things, themes of Saturn's transit in Pisces, right? So there, what we have to understand is pension is a 12th house event in astrology. Okay, in the sense, a retirement is a 12th house event. So post-retirement, your life is, you taking a break from the world. That's the 12th house. Okay, so you losing your job is a 12th house event. It's a loss, the sign of loss. Okay, so pension is post that. Okay, so if you look at pension, it is still an 8th house thing, which is basically you're getting money from someone. It's an 8th house event of getting funds from the government. Okay, but the attention was there in this 12th house because of the Saturn transit in Pisces, right? And it's still a monetary event because Jupiter is in Taurus. It's about money. Okay, and of course, it depends on what is going on in France's chart at that time. If you cast the chart of the country, you will be able to get the most accurate houses where it was there and what really could have triggered this violence between the cops and the normal people and such. But the signs matter here. You see, the importance of the Rashis is what I'm trying to highlight in this event. Okay, so was not something you could have easily seen. It's a very difficult event to predict, but the violence and such you can easily predict, of course, but the root cause of that violence, you'll have to know the Rashis correctly. You'll have to take a little bit of, outside the box approach to see that. Okay. All right. The next one, again, this was something I was always a bit skeptical and careful about. And I mentioned that if this Russia-Ukraine war does not stop, there is always going to be a chance that it will escalate into other areas. Okay, because that is the energy that was there around the world. There was a war, tension between countries going on, right? So then it started on the solar eclipse exactly. So if people ask, oh, what happened? I mean, is it a coincidence on the eclipse this is happening? No, it's not. We knew that this is something coming up. There was already a tension building. Okay, so October 8th, 2023, Israel-Hamas war started. Numerous casualties going on, not never-ending problems there. Okay, so an exact coincidence on the solar eclipse. Okay, so war-torn situation that we can see. All right, so you can imagine, that the situation where just Saturn-Mars opposition was going on until 27th August, and there was always, constant triggers there, and just things escalating very rapidly close to the eclipse. That's one of the things that triggered it. Okay, so again, it's mostly for what reasons there, already it's religious intolerance and issues that is going on for centuries, right? Then the two other events, very interesting ones actually, this Red Sea war and then the Israel-Iran conflict that is also again brewing in the background. So the Red Sea war, tensions on the Red Sea region increased significantly, leading to a series of military engagements. April 2024, again, water body, Red Sea, tensions, right? April 2024. So you can see that exact around that time when Saturn and Mars were conjunct, 11th of April, I had written that, there is going to be all these kind of problems. Okay. So water related events, water body centered issues, again escalating once again between Iran and Israel, April 8th, 2024. And it was very coincidental, this one, and very interesting because this started with the capture of a shipping vessel. You see, again, start of the trigger was on the water body. Okay, so that is the accuracy that we can capture here. Okay, with this transit. All right. So the next one is the deaths and murders. So this was death of a significant personality. This was the former Prime Minister of Italy. Okay, so Berlusconi, he passed away on June 12th. What is interesting to me is, of course, I had predicted that the passing away of some important world leaders and politicians, all those things will happen. You can see that, right? Religious politicians and all of that is mentioned. But what is interesting to me is that he passed away at the time of the Guru Chandal Yoga. And this is a person who is very controversial, okay, for all his corruption and wrongdoings when he was in power. Okay, so that's very interesting phenomenon that took place for the death of this person, the Prime Minister, former Prime Minister of Italy. Okay, then on July 7th, 2023, there was a murder of a Jain priest. Jainism is another religion in India, very significant and very important. And this priest was murdered in my state of Karnataka. And this was due to some religious as well as some financial fraud connected matters. Okay, so there was some conflict because of some financial things. Very strange for a priest to get involved in those things, but I got this prediction bang on. Okay, on July 7th, the event happened, and I had mentioned in this window there was a Guru Chandal Yoga. Okay, so the scam came to the surface, the death happened, all right, and many people were arrested. You can think it was maybe a small event. No, it is not, because it is impacting the lives of at least 70 million people. Okay, in my state, that's the population there. So it's a significant event, and you can also dig up more material if you like. There is another important event that happened in Sri Lanka where a priest was arrested. I think some in Nepal, but it was not that significant to this scale because this is a murder of a priest. A murder of a priest is a very sad thing that you can do to a guru. Okay, so tomorrow there is actually Guru Purnima coming up, and you can imagine we worship gurus in India and we pray to gurus, and here is the murder of the priest. So it's a sad thing there. Okay, then there is the interesting thing with this king of UK. He was diagnosed with cancer, and that was a prostate related cancer. This happened February 5th, 2024. So again, a very important event because he didn't pass away, of course, but it's still a health issue for a leader of the country, right? So that's there. So, and still 2024 is the time frame where we're talking about the same transit of Saturn in Pisces. Okay. And of course, with cancer, the issues can always escalate very quickly. And in his chart, if there is death that is possible in the next few years, he can certainly pass away before Saturn exits Pisces. Okay, that's also a possibility. Again, we need to check that particularly with his chart to confirm. Okay. Then this most recent event, just last week, you saw the assassination attempt of Donald Trump. Okay. So this was not predicted. Okay. He's still an important person. He was not in power. But what was interesting about this prediction is that several years ago, when I was on the Kala forum and discussing about his chart and everything, for me, this transit of Saturn was a longevity transit for him. Okay, because he's a Leo ascendant. We will discuss his chart in a bit. I will actually post some of this material that I've already taught in my courses in the next few weeks. You will see that. He's a Leo ascendant. He has Saturn transiting in Pisces, which is his natural 8th house. And I'd mentioned many times that there is possibility of his, threat to his longevity. Okay. So the threat, meaning he can die if he is sick. It's a possible thing. But an assassination attempt is still a very huge threat to his longevity. He just barely missed. So that is a very interesting thing from a personal chart of Donald Trump. Okay, even though he was not in power, but still a significant event for him, you can think, right? All right. So then, few interesting things. Okay, it's very nice, positive events you can say, or maybe some tricky events for the world when it comes to mining and such, which we will see. So there was actually an ancient whale that was discovered in Peru. Okay, another nice thing about this is that it leads to new insights to marine life, okay, and the evolution. So I had mentioned this, right? So there will always be some important things with respect to the flora and fauna of the oceans, okay? So I was expecting a threat in the form of an oil spill. All right, so because Saturn rules dead things, oil is formed from dead things and fossils and such. But you have to note down that fossils are still a Saturnian thing. It's something ancient, okay? So that's come to the surface, which gives more insight into, the flora and fauna of the world, right? So that's very important discovery in the ocean that you can say, especially a large creature, okay, like a whale. Then another monumental decision was taken in Norway, and Norway is very well known for all the oil and the mining and such. So there was a decision taken which is very unusual compared to the other European states, that Norway permitted the mining of the seabed, the deep sea bed. Okay, so the submersible was going to be used, and they will allow companies to mine. And this is a very big one. It's not a small event, because the area where it will be allowable to mine is this almost the size of Italy as a country. Okay, so water mining is a very Martian event. Okay, you have to dig the soil and such, but it is happening in the water. Okay, and this happened in April 2024. They came to that decision, but actually around January itself, that discussions were ongoing. Okay, so April 2024, you can see on 11th was when there was a Saturn Mars exact conjunction in the sky. Okay, any minerals and such is all Mars. Any findings related to that, Saturn is the hard work that we do to uncover that. Okay, for this reason, Saturn Mars is very important when it comes to even any form of farming. Okay, digging or terraforming, anything with the physical entity of the earth, you need those two grahas involved. Okay, it's hard work, and it's related to minerals or the earth in some form. Okay, so that was very interesting. That it's a positive thing, but it's still an impact on the environment. So it's debatable, and it's against many people's wish, and many people had to vote for that and all of that. But it's the first country in the world to permit this. Okay, it's an important monumental event, right, when it comes to deep sea mining and such. So if they discover some important sea minerals and like other large quantities of essential minerals, it's going to put Norway on the forefront of technology and breakthroughs. So they took a vote and they decided on that. Okay, it's a very important event. All right. So then, when it comes to legal and financial events, this is very important. Again, when it comes to this, because Jupiter was in Taurus that time. Okay, the whole world was in panic mode when it comes to 2023 because there was a prediction of a recession. I was very clear. I was to the point when I said this is not going to happen. Okay. So I said there was going to be a maintenance of the economy either through interest rate hikes or they are going to sustain. There will not be a recession. And I was bang on target with that prediction. Okay. So there was no recession, as you're aware, for 2023. And there was sustenance and it was a hyperinflated market. Many of the stocks are still hyperinflated. Many of the things about any trading is hyperinflated. Okay. So you can say even the Bitcoin, the crypto, the NFTs, or you name it. Okay. Even prices of common day commodities all hyperinflated. Okay. Now Jupiter is transiting in Mercury's sign. So you can imagine there will be some corrections. It is a very important sign for trading also, that because it is naturally the sign of Gemini, where commerce will take the spotlight always. Okay, commerce, media, communication. You will see some very significant events, news coming to the surface when it comes to all these TV personalities, celebrities, and media communication centered personalities, even YouTube figures and all of that. Okay. So there is going to be a significant correction happening. Okay. It's still a very weak position for Jupiter. It's in a natural enemy sign. All right. So when it comes to natural financial growth in the world, things are going to swing from one extreme to another. All right. And Gemini has some negative, influences to offer when it comes to as a Rashi. Okay. There can always be some extremes. It's a dual sign that we're talking about. It's going to swing from one extreme to another in general. Taurus at least has a stable ground to stand on. It's a quadruped Rashi, whereas Gemini is not. Okay, so there is an interesting phase when it comes to even the stock market, and people are seeing that. Okay, if people want to make money, it's also a time to make money, but people can also significantly lose money. Okay, and why Gemini is so important? It is the natural third house. Okay, it's the natural third house of trading, and it's commerce. Mercury rules business, right? And he's a Vaishya when it comes to the trading part. Is the son of the moon, so there's a lot of connections to all these things. We'll have to watch again very carefully. People who are interested in financial astrology, we have to really pay attention to what's going to happen now, because things are going to shift. Okay, Jupiter, of course, has already made the transit into Gemini. It's been already a month or so. Okay, but now things are going to start changing because once Rahu Ketu transits change, as well as the eclipses happen, okay, and some other important events of Mars are coming up with this transit in Cancer to Leo, a long time retrogression. So all those are going to play a very important role, okay, that you can imagine. But that was a bang on prediction. Recession never arrived as predicted. Okay. Another interesting thing was June 6, 2023, a lawsuit was filed against Coinbase for operating as an unregistered security exchange entity. So there was again a bang on prediction there because it was in this window. See, 19th May to 18th July, and there was this, financial scams, as I mentioned, right? All those things coming to the surface, and there is a possibility of big institutions like these were mentioned. Okay. So I mentioned also that, major news will break when it comes to crypto, NFT, stock exchange related matters. Okay. So that was exactly what I said. And there is another article you can read which was written 5 years ago about that. Okay. So that was also part of this. And there was also some extreme swings that will happen, as I mentioned in that article. So you see what has happened in this time was the debt ceiling crisis. So that took off, narrowly avoided a financial crisis because of that, right, in US. The interest rate hikes, series of interest rate hikes were done to combat inflation, right, on June window. Then there was this very important event of Silicon Valley Bank that failed in March 2023. Okay, and that had a domino effect because it caused a lot of ripples through the financial sectors, raising some concerns and stability. Okay. Then the stock market performance, again, there was a recovery around this time, but it had to go through some major ups and downs after this bank failure. Okay, so there was some earnings and that tech sector that helped in this recovery. Okay, so then there was a slowdown predicted from IMF that time. Okay, so tech sector rallied quite a bit to sustain the stock market. If it was not for Nvidia's stock last year, you could imagine the whole stock market situation with the artificial intelligence boom was the one that was sustaining it. Other than that, there was no support for the stock market if it was not for the tech sector. Okay, so you can imagine that. So it was a very important time for the Jupiter's transit in Taurus for the sustenance and to continue, but it was hyperinflated. Many people, as even analysts think today, it's still a hyperinflated market. A lot of corrections are on the way, but that was essential. Otherwise, imagine a recession following by a war with Russia and Ukraine going in the background, and then coming out of COVID, it was going to be a disaster for overall life on Earth, right? Yeah. Okay, then interestingly, I had mentioned one point about this work-life balance, and that was mostly related to Saturn's transit in Pisces, right? So you can see one interesting phenomenon taking off in China, where people are really had enough of overworking and committing too much, and just living for the sake of work. Okay, so they finally are highlighting this trend among young people in China where they just lying flat. It's an interesting read. You should look into that, and it will highlight the importance of work-life balance, where people really, I mean, come to think of it, why China is so important is it's the global factory of the world, and there is where the work is heavily concentrated. So whatever impact there is going to have ripple effects throughout the world now. So the economic growth there, and what kind of laws are there, what kind of impact is going on the personal life of people, all those things we have to understand. And this is a very important phenomenon that is there. Okay, it is brewing since a few years now, but it took off in a very strong way in 2023, 2024, you can say. All right. So that's about it actually. Still, the Saturn transit in Pisces is ongoing. Rahu Ketu's impact is still there. Okay. And a few wars have started. Hopefully it will subside. Okay, so a lot of interesting things happening in the stock market and the currency and the financial events. Gold prices took off significantly very high. That also another important event. I should have listed that, I didn't here. Okay, but there's very important corrections on the way in this period now in Gemini. Hopefully when Jupiter transits into Cancer, it's going to be a very interesting time. So we'll have to study that and see what it's going to bring. Okay. So I've just summarized all these events here. If people want to take a look and study them individually, they should for practice. All right. And for my record, I always look back on my predictions and try to, see how many I've got it right, how many I missed. Was it vastly different, or was it something that I was very close to and maybe missed? Right, those kind of things are helpful for me to understand the rashis and the ayanamsa. Okay, so I think with this you really have to see, this is not the first time I'm doing this kind of predictions. I've done that in the past. Almost always it comes in very accurately, and this is not going to be the last time either. It's only going to get better as and when I learn more and I really make my skills even more accurate. But the point is, you might be doing everything right on your side with your techniques, but if you're missing something significantly, especially in terms of world events, it could be that you're not using the right rashis. The ayanamsa is something that you will have to test. Okay, so for beginning astrologers, or your astrologer practicing for a long time, it does not really matter. It's important you back your predictions with an explanation, and also to see if you got them right, and really test it. It's the only way to know whether you're right or wrong. Okay, it's easy for people to describe the events after it has happened. Many people will struggle even about that. I'll tell you, 7 out of 10 people can't explain an event even after it is manifested. Okay, but to predict something and then have a follow through and see that it accurately lines up is going to take some skill. Okay, so that's what is the priority for us as students of astrology, I should say. Okay, then something else I want to highlight is when it comes to reading charts as well. Okay, when we know there are events already manifested in a person's life, or a personality for that matter, we should be able to at least analyze that and derive meaning from that. Okay, so that I have taught in all my courses. Okay, we have not done any future predictions for people in the courses, but all the techniques are relevant for even the future predictions, whatever is taught. So in the next set of videos, I will be sharing something coming up for the US presidential election, because more or less I think it is going to be an easy race for Donald Trump, unless and until Biden decides to step down. Okay, so that we are going to see coming up tomorrow, what's going to happen in this next week or so. And those two people have a very interesting entanglement between them. Okay, Donald Trump is a 3 of diamond person, and his ecliptic card is a king of diamonds, right? And interesting transits are happening for him in his life, because Jupiter is transiting in the 11th house now. Okay, more or less it is set in stone after the assassination attempt that with the sympathy votes he should win. Okay, even before this assassination attempt, the way the incumbent Biden administration was running, probably it was not in any favor for him. Okay, and he really made a mess out of the recent debate, and people have lost all hopes with the Biden administration now, right? So Biden is a king of hearts person. Okay, and the king of hearts has a king of diamonds on the sun card, which is Donald Trump's ecliptic card, and they're always entangled, these two people. Another very interesting thing is, when I taught these courses and several years back, also discussing about Donald Trump's chart, he's a 3 of diamonds. Okay, so in the next set of videos you'll see, these were the videos that were shot several years ago. All right, and in that I describe all his careers and such. But for a 3 of diamonds, he's getting a third shot at his presidency now, which is very interesting as a number. Okay, so once he was there in power, then he lost, and this is a third shot. Okay, the question is, I'm not taking any sides. It's least concern to me. I mean, not even someone who is interested in politics of any country for that matter. But what is important is, I will show the videos to you. And again, this is videos from the past. It's not the most recent videos, right? And both these personalities we will discuss. Okay, you'll see them for why they are, what are their shortcomings, what are the good things, why they are in power. Okay, and some of their events of their life, their careers, all those things we will discuss. It's presented in plain sight, and you can take a look for yourselves and see what jumps out of their chart to you. And okay, and if you are people from US and you really want to have a president, you decide for yourself after seeing those two charts who you should be voting for. Okay, of course now maybe it is apparent what you want to do, but it's an interesting way to look at their events. Okay, their life events for that matter. Okay, so both have very different contrasts when it comes to their lives. Both come from very different backgrounds, but it's two charts you should study, which I've taught in the courses, and especially Donald Trump is a very interesting chart. Okay, so you see, you learn a lot when you go through those two charts and that card spreads. Okay, so in those videos, I'll go through the astrology as well as the cards. Okay, and as I've taught in my courses. And then if I have time, I'm planning to also make some videos for the elections and predict it, backing up with the predictions. So we'll see if I get to that in the next couple of weeks. Okay. And that's it for now. Thanks once again for watching the videos and see you soon.